I hope you can all see my screen. So we'll just go through what we've been covering the past few weeks in regards to web development and specifically front-end development. So we say that so this is just revision. We say that front-end, it's the visible part of our website, the part of our website that you get to interact with, and you get to see when you're dealing with a website or a software. And we say that we have three main levels to any website or any software that is dynamic. So we categorize them into three. We said we have the front-end part of our website, the back-end part of our website, then the database. And the front-end, as we've said, is the visible part that you can be able to see and interact with. The back-end is what handles the logic and other operations and processes that usually goes behind the scene. And if you remember, we categorized we say that there are technologies and languages that we usually use when we are either building the front-end part of our system or the back-end, or if you're working with databases, there are also technologies and tools that we use. In front-end, we say that the core languages are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Back-end, we say that we have so many programming languages that you can be able to use. Python, JavaScript, Node.js, PHP, we have Java, we have C, we have C++. So there are many according to what you want to implement. So we categorized the front-end languages into this small pyramid that you have here. And we say that anytime that you want to work on the front-end part, first of all, you start, let's say if you're creating a website or a web application, you first of all start with the HTML, then which helps us in building the structure and layout of your web page. Then after you've built the structure and layout of your web page, you now move on to CSS, which usually helps us with the styling and the appearance of the website. Then finally, you move to JavaScript, which is a programming language, and it helps us to add functionality, logic, and interactivity to our web applications. So we had covered on, we talked about HTML, and we are able to finish the main parts. Of course, we say that we cannot be able to cover everything because HTML is quite broad. So our focus mainly was for us to be able to understand how HTML works. And because we said there are two main things that are usually very important when you're dealing with HTML files. The first one is tags, what are tags and how to use tags. And the second one is elements, which we were able to cover. So I'll just take us through a quick rundown of HTML. This is just revision, so today we'll not be going into what we've already covered in the time past, because we've repeated them quite a few times. So we talked about the basic structure of HTML documents. And we said anytime that you are creating a HTML document or a HTML file, first of all, you give it a name. For example, I've given mine the name index. You can give it any random name that you want. Then always remember to close it with a .html extension so that your IDE knows that this is a HTML file, or your browsers you're rendering your HTML file will know that this is a HTML file. We talked about boilerplates, and we say that a boilerplate is basically, it is the basic structure of a HTML page. And we say that anytime that you want to create a boilerplate, you just press Shift 1. and that's how you generate a boilerplate. We talked about what each and every tag does and each and every element does in the boilerplate. The doc type, we said it tells us the version of HTML that we are using. Then this online 2 HTML, we say that that's the parent element, which houses everything that you'll have in your HTML file. Then we say that we have the head section, which contains the metadata. So it's the non-visible part of a website. And we say that in the head section, which is basically this one, the only thing that will be visible on the screen will be the title, which it's this one. So this is what will appear anytime that your website goes live, and we said it usually appears on top here where the tabs are. From there, we went to the body section, and we talked about a few elements that we can be able to use in the body section. We also talked about tags, and we say that tags are basically these arrow brackets or directional brackets that we usually use. So that was in regards to the body section. We talked about tags. Now in the body section, and the body section, we say that it is what the user will be able to see, and it is what is usually contained in this white space anytime you render your HTML file or you run your browser. So it's the visible part of a website that you can be able to see and interact with. We divided the body section into three main parts. We said that it's divided into the header section, which usually contains your navigation bars. Then the main content of your web page or your website or your web application. Then the footer section. So we said it has three parts. The first one is the header section, which contains your navigation. The main content, which contains the core elements or the core features of your website. Then the footer, which is usually the closing section of your HTML pages. We talked about elements, and we defined what elements are. So we say that we have different elements in HTML, and Bobby had said that we have around 140. We talked about the main ones. We talked about headings, which helps us to create headings in our web pages, and we categorize them into 6, from H1 to H6. From there, we talked about the paragraph element or the paragraph tag, which we usually use when you want to create paragraphs or long form text in our HTML pages. We talked about images, we talked about links, and all that. So from there, if you remember, we were able to touch on CSS, and we went through basically what CSS is. So we said that CSS in full usually stands for cascading style sheets, and it's a language that is used in styling. Basically, we said it is used to make sure that our websites look appealing and professional, and CSS usually helps us to be able to develop websites that have a good user experience. As you interact with them, you can be able to interact with websites that are easy to navigate, they look appealing to the eye, and all that. And CSS is what usually helps us to achieve all that. And we talked about the importance of CSS, which is enhancing web design, improving the user experience, separating our main content, which we built on HTML, with the design part. And it helps us to have responsive designs in our web applications. So you can have the same website that can be able to work very well and responsively in different screen devices. If you use it on a mobile, if you use it, if you use the website on a tablet or on a desktop, the user experience will still be okay, regardless of the screen resolution that you're using. We talked about the three main ways that you can be able to apply CSS to your HTML document. We talked about inline CSS, internal CSS, and external CSS. So if you remembered, we said that, for example, so we said, for example, this is a simple boilerplate that I've generated. The three ways that you can be able to apply CSS, which is basically styling, to your HTML document or to your web application that you are trying to create. The first one is inline. And we said that with inline CSS, we usually style our elements inside the line or the element that you want to style. With that, what I mean is, if you want to write, let's say, a small heading, it's H1, and we'll maybe, let's say, just sit. If you want to style it inline, all you need to do is just style it within the element itself or the tag itself. You can come and style it using any property that you want to use and the value that you want to give it. And if you're styling, if you want to use more than one styling, you want to use more than one styling property. I think it was yes. So if you want to use more than one styling property, all you need to do is to separate one styling property to the next using semicolon, which is this one. So I want to change the color to red. What I've simply done on this side, I've put the property, and we had talked about that. Let me just show you here. We had talked about the syntax every time that you're styling. I just want. Yes, this is what I was looking for. We had talked about the syntax of styling HTML elements, and we had said that the syntax is usually very simple. The first part is the selector, which is basically either the element, the tag, or the class that you want to be able to style. After that, all you need to do is choose the property that you want to style, and we have multiple properties that you can be able to use to style. You can style the color, you can style let's say, the font size. You can be able to style how the display will look like. We have so many of them. Then on so the property is usually on the left side. Then the value that you want to allocate to that property is usually on the right side. So this is what I mean. If you, for example, let's if my property is color, then on the right side, all I need to do is specify the value that I want to put. If I come and put blue, then I've allocated it a new value, and as we can see, it has already changed. So if you want to use more than one property, all you need to do, if you're using InStyle, styling, is separate the property value with a semicolon. So I've done that for the first one. The second one, if I want to add a third one, maybe I can come and transform the text to let's say lowercase. So you can add as many as you want using this in styling. So that was the first way you can be able to style your HTML elements. The second one was internal, and we said the difference between inline styling and internal. Internal styling, you usually style it from the head section on top of your HTML page. So probably just after the title there, all you need to do is put the style tag. So when I put that, it tells HTML that I want to be able to perform a few styling. I want to be able to style my HTML documents. So I can come here and I can be able to, I've added a H1, I've named it seat. I can be able to add a paragraph.
Hi, Benja.
Hi.
I'm struggling with your screen.
It's not visible.
Yeah, to me, it's not visible.
Can you guys see my screen, or the words are too little?
Okay, the words are little.
Now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Now?
Okay,
It's
enlarge a
okay.
little bit. Okay, fine.
So let me just come and add a few elements over here. Maybe, okay, for now, let me just use simple elements. So you can come and add H2. Another thing we said, HTML is not case sensitive, which means if I come and type H2 and I come and I type H2, all of these are the same. It doesn't matter, it will still pick. It's not case sensitive. You're free to use whatever case you want. If you want to use uppercase or lowercase, but it's always a good practice. Anytime you're writing your code in HTML or CSS, always stick to small letters. It makes your code cleaner. So it's not mandatory for you to use small letters. Even capital will still work, but it's a good practice anytime that you are writing your code in HTML to always maintain small letters. So let me just come and do some random stuff here. Now we've talked about inline styling, and we've said there is another way that you can be able to style using the head section. So what you simply do is put the selector that you want to style. I want to style the entire body. Then basically what you need to do is enclose whatever you want to style in curly braces or brackets. From there you can style it however you want. You can decide I can decide I want to change the background color. So this background color, it is what is known as a property. What are you trying to style? So it's usually on the left side. Then you separate the property from the value that you want to allocate to that property using a full colon. Then you allocate a value to it. Let me say I want to give it a background color of red. So it has changed. And once you've given it a value, so that you can be able to style other things in your HTML document, you simply end whatever you want to style with a semicolon like that. So that when you go to the next property that you want to style, it will not bring conflict. You can be able to style as many properties as you want. You can come and add, let's say we want to add a margin of 10 pixels. So the margin now it becomes our property. Then you separate it with a full colon. Then you, let's say we've allocated it a value of 10 pixels. So when you press enter, we can come and say maybe we want the color of whatever text will be inside our body to be white. So you can see it has changed. I can come and maybe delete this. I can come and pick any element here and still be able to style it on top using the internal styling. I can just come and pick, I want to style this H1. And we said, if you want to style an element, what you simply need to do, or you want to style a tag, what you simply need to do is to come and pick the element that you want to style, for example, H1. And all I need to do is come and write H1. So that's the element. If you remember, if you remember the syntax here, so we have the selector, the property, and the value. Now the selector, we say that we have different types of selectors, and one of them is elements. So the elements that you usually use when you're creating your HTML files. We said if you want to style an element in CSS, all you need to do is to come and pick the name of the element that you want to style and put it in curly braces. Then you style it however you style it however you feel like. I can come and say I want the color to be blue, or let me say white so that it's more visible. I can still come and pick another element I want to style this P. All I need to do is come pick the element. Then inside this two tags, the opening tag for styling and the closing, where I'm styling my HTML elements. I'll come and put it there. Then curly braces the same way. I can also come and change the color to, maybe we want green. So once we come here, we can see it has changed to green. I can change the font size. So you can see we've been able to change the font size. It's slightly bigger now. So you can do that to as many, however you want to style it. It's all a personal choice, but that's how we usually style using internal CSS. So we said the first two, internal CSS and inline CSS, they usually, one of the disadvantage of internal CSS and inline CSS is that you can only use this styling inside this HTML page. So for example, our HTML page is index.html. If I come and I create a second page and I name it about us.html, then this styling cannot be able to work in this other page. So it limits us in such a way that if you use internal CSS or inline CSS, then you have to keep styling elements over and over again, which makes our code really long and it makes our work really difficult. So that's where external CSS usually comes in. External CSS, first of all, it usually helps us that you can be able to separate our structure or our web layout, our HTML layout from our styling. And this is what we mean with external CSS. You are not you can have one file that has all your styling across all your HTML pages. If I come and I create 5 web pages here, 5 HTML pages here, I can come and create that. I come and I create another HTML page, maybe the final one I can create, let's say, if I come and create these 5 HTML documents, I can be able to just create one file in CSS. And we say that if you want to use external CSS and you want to create a separate file, what you need to do is to create a separate file for it. And the way you usually create that is simply giving it a name. You can give it any name that you want. The most common name is usually style.css, but you're free to use any name. So style is the name of our CSS file. Then .css is the extension that tells our browser that this is a CSS file that is used for styling. Sorry, I've done a mistake. I've created a folder. So it's style.css. And we said that if you want to know that you've been able to create a CSS file successfully, we usually have this hash icon next to the CSS file that you've created. If you don't see this hash sign, then it means that you've made a mistake. For example, even in HTML, if you don't see these anchor tags beside the file that you've created, then it means that you've made a mistake. And we said that just for having a clean project and making sure that your project structure is clean and you can be able to access everything well, it is always a good practice. Again, it's not mandatory. You're free to do whatever you feel is okay. But it is always a good practice anytime you're creating an external CSS file, just create a folder inside your project. Now this is the main project. Inside that your main project, create a subfolder and you name it CSS. Now inside this subfolder here, you simply put all your CSS files. So it usually helps you to have a clean project as your project becomes bigger and bigger. Now, I was explaining the advantage of external CSS. The advantage of external CSS is that with this one single file here, we can be able to style all these pages at once, and we can be able to reuse our styling in different web pages without having to rewrite them all over again. So it makes our work easier. Then the second thing is that it separates our HTML, the structure and the layout of our web pages from the styling. So if I come back to the work that you are doing on index.html, instead of combining our styling, let's say our JavaScript code into one HTML file, which makes it very crowded and busy, we can simply come and remove line 7 to line 25. So what this will help us with, this index.html file will be purely HTML documents, which tells us the structure and the layout of our HTML page. Now, the style.css is what we'll use purely for styling. So what will go inside the style.html is purely the styling of our HTML of our HTML pages. And to be able to style a web page externally, we said all you need to do is to come to the head section over here, and you simply use the link tag or the link element. So once you just click, if you have autocomplete on your VS Code, it should just populate the whole thing for you. And we said this first part usually just indicates that this is a link to a styling document. So it tells our browsers and it tells VS Code that the link that we are using here, we are using it for a styling document, which is HTML. And we said HTML in full stands for Cascading Style Sheet, which helps us with styling our HTML documents. Then the href basically is referring to the location of where the CSS file is. It can be externally, maybe on a browser somewhere or another website somewhere, or it can be within your project. So for example, here it's within our project, and what you need to do is specify the path you will use to access that specific file. For example, ours is inside this subfolder that you've just created, named CSS. So what you need to do is come and state the subfolder that it's inside. So it's CSS. Then this backslash, then the name of our CSS file. So once we do that, then we've been able to link our HTML to our external CSS, which is this one. And so anything that you do here, if I come and I change, if I come and change the body to put a background of background color of let's say blue violet, So if I come back to my HTML page, yes, so if I come back to my HTML page, it has changed to blue violet. Now I can be able to reuse this 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of code all through all these HTML pages that I've created here. So I can come to this second page, let's say contact us. Let me just quickly generate a boilerplate for it. Then I link my CSS externally. So here I'll just put the path to accessing that CSS file. I can come and also use this, then same script. So if you remember, you can look at the top part here. So we are on the index.html, and that is what we had initially styled using this styling. So we have just changed the color of the background to purple for the index.html, the first one that we had created. But we have created other files in HTML here, around 5, and 3 of them we've been able to link them to the same style sheet, which is style.css. So if I come to the gallery and I just run it, yes, so if I come to the gallery and I run it, you can see that the gallery is empty inside the body tags or the body element. It does not have anything, but we've changed the background color of the body to purple using the same code that you've used, and you can see it's also applying here. If I come and I just close this and I go to the contact us page, same thing that we've been able to do here. If I run it, then it's also purple. So you can be able to reuse your blocks of code in CSS as much as you want. So that's one of the power of external CSS. So maybe the final thing that I'll cover is the different ways to use the different selectors that you can be able to use in now that we are inside the external styling. The final thing that I'll be able to cover is the different ways, the different selectors in CSS. Okay, up to there, do we have any questions or anything that is not clear or anything that you feel that I skipped so that you just cover it before we move to the next thing? Any questions? Okay, so we've just created a few elements in HTML here for learning purposes. We've created a heading, we've created a paragraph, and I can probably add an image. So I'll come and reuse the same images that we've been using. So, and we said if you want to add an image to, for me, the easiest way that I usually find if you want to add images to your projects, all I simply need to do, also I usually do the same thing so that my project does not look untidy. All I need to do is come to my main project folder here where everything is, create a subfolder the same way we've done with CSS. I come and create a subfolder and maybe I'll name it images. So inside these images, I usually find the easiest way to load my images to my projects is simply to go to the folder where they are located. And let's say I want all of this. I'll just select them. Then I simply drag them inside. So that's very easy when it's easier compared to copying them and pasting them one by one. We had talked about the image elements, and we had said that it's used to embed or to add images that will be displayed in our web page. So this is what the image element on line 14 does. The image tag tells us that we are about to add or embed an image to our HTML page. Then the source is functions the same way as the href. It tells us the location of that image. Same concept applies here. You just put the path towards that will help you to access that image. So I'll simply come and say where the image is located. It's located in the images subfolder. Then what do I want to put? I want to put the first image, banner 1.jpg. Always remember when you are adding an image or a file to your HTML page, remember to write it exactly as it is. So for example, I want to be able to add the first image, which is banner1.jpg. If I come and just write banner1 without the extension for the image, it won't load because I've not put the complete name of that image. Always remember to add it exactly the way it is. So I'll just return the JPG, and we say the alt is used when to display an alternative text in case the image fails to load. So if this image does not load, then the text that is inside this quotation marks is what will appear. So if I come and say image 1, so it means that in case banner1.jpg fails to load, then this is the text that will be displayed. Okay, now that we've done that, I can come and create a simple list. So I'll just come and create a div element, a div attribute, sorry. And this div, I'll give it a class. So the class that I'll give it, and how you usually create a class. And we said classes are usually help us when we want to style our different elements or different attributes in CSS. So one of the advantages of classes is that you can be able to reuse one styling over different elements through your project. And I think I'll illustrate that shortly. To create a class, so a class is an example of a selector in CSS. to be able to create a class, what you need to do is come to the elements that you want to create, to convert it to a class, or the attribute that you want to convert it to a class. So for example, I want to convert this div section into a class. All I simply need to do is come inside the opening tag and put a space. Then I specify that I want to convert it into a class, or I want to create a class for this div. After I've written the word class, I put this assignment operator, or is equal sign, then quotation marks. Inside this quotation marks is it's where I'll define the name of this class. So I can give it any name that I want, but always ensure that you do not use HTML keywords. So keywords, we say that they are inbuilt, or they are reserved words in the language that you want to use. So for example, it's not a good practice to come and use, let's say, h1 here as my class name, because h1 is a reserved keyword in HTML. What I need to do is give it a unique name that is not a reserved keyword. Can come and say maybe nav items. So that's the name that I've been able to create here. So I'll come and just create a simple list, a simple unordered list. Then I create maybe a list of 5 items. So here I'll just maybe say so. Let me just put random values here. I can also come here, create another, let's say h3. And I give it another attribute. So this h3, instead of a class, I can give it an ID. So that's another way to, it's another selector that you can be able to use, IDs, which I think Bobby had touched on. So to create an just a minute, I respond to something. Okay, so I'm back. So to create an ID, you just do the same way that you're creating, you just create them the same way that you're creating classes. What you simply need to do is write the ID to specify that this is an ID that you want to create. Assign a name to it. I can come and say sorry, I can come and say title 2. So that's the name of our ID. Now we have created an element. So these two are elements. We've created a class here, and we've created an ID. You want to look at the different ways that you can be able to style your HTML document using these different selectors, either elements, either classes, or IDs. So first of all, we'll start with and let me just put them side by side so that as So we have these different things that we have here, and this is our, let me just delete this unnecessary. We have these elements that we've been able to create here. So the first element is this h1. Maybe I'll just make the body to become white again. I can come and pick an element, and we said if you want to style an element, all you need to do is come and pick the element that you want to style. Let's say, for example, this h1. I can come and say h1, and I give it a color. So I give it a color of brown. You can see it has changed to brown. But now the disadvantage of styling with elements without putting them into classes, it means that every h1 that is inside this index.html page will be affected by this styling. So every h1 will turn to brown. If I come and create other h1s here, and yes, so if I come and create other h1s here, you'll realize that all of these h1s that I've created, they're being affected by this same styling. And at times you do not want that. You want to be able to control each and every element that you create independently. And that's where classes usually come into play. So for example, if I come to this, so this is the first h1 that I'd created here. If I come to this second h1 and I put it inside the class, I come and I create a class for it, and I name it, let's say, title 2. So if I come and name it that way, I can be able to style this second h1 element that I've created separately, and it will not be affected by this universal styling of all the h1s. So to style a class, what you need to do, unlike styling an element, for example, styling an element like h1 or p or image, which has not been converted into a class, if you're doing that, all you need to do is to come and put the name of the element that you want to style. But classes are usually different. So you come and pick the name of the class that you want to style, go to CSS, and what's usually the difference when you want to style a class, you first of all need to start with a period or a full stop before putting the class name. So this is the difference between an element and a class. From there, you need to put everything else is the same. So if I come and change the color to black, so you'll notice that now this h1, it's this one on line 14, we've been able to change it to black, and like these other h1s, they're still maintaining the universal styling that we styled using the element. So that's one of the advantages of a class, using a class when you want to style your HTML elements. It usually gives you the independence to be able to do whatever you want. If I come and transform this text to, or I come and I put a decoration here, I can come and say I transform this text to lowercase. I can come and be able to style this further. I say probably when someone hovers over it, let the color change to aqua green. So you'll notice that with these other ones, once someone hovers over them, they're not changing, but this one is changing. So that is one of the advantages of classes. It usually helps us that we can be able to have independence of in such a way that you can be able to style an element individually. The second importance of classes, it helps us so that we can be able to reuse our code as much as we want. And this is what I mean. So for example, I've created this class named title title 2. It's this one. I can be able to come and pick this class name. Then I use it on this paragraph element. Remember, it's not a H1, it's a paragraph element, but I can be able to reuse this class here, and the same styling will also apply here. So it will help me so that I don't keep writing my code again, making my code longer for nothing. So I just come and put that here. So notice once I hover over this paragraph, it changes. So I can. Do you have a question? There's someone who's trying to talk. So you can be able to use classes to be able to style as many elements as possible into one thing. For example, if I come and I say that I want the background color to be aquamarine, you'll notice that for both anywhere that I'm using this class named title.2, the background will change. If I come and I say that I also want this other element to use the same class name, you can notice it is also changing. So that's so we've talked about the element styling. Then we've also been able to talk about the class styling. So another thing that I want to talk about is the universal styling. So the universal selector, sorry. We've talked about the element selector and the class selector. So the universal selector is usually this hash, not hash, this, I don't know the name. I think it's a star or an asterisk or something. When you use this, what basically you're saying that you want to use a universal selector. So it means that anything that you style using the universal selector will apply to the entire web page that you're styling. So if I come, and this is how you write the universal selector. So it's just this hash. I don't know if it's I'm not sure of the name of this symbol, but it's what we use. From there we have if I come and change, let's say, the color to, let's say, purple. So let's go back to our project. So you'll notice one thing. Let me just remove this for now. Now you'll notice one thing. I want you to take notice of the H1 heading. Also take note of this, take note of this, and take note of this. So let's go back to our code. If I transform this text to, let's say, lowercase, you can see that everything inside our web page is, every text is transformed to lowercase. So what the universal selector usually helps us with, if you want to be able to style everything at once, you can use the universal selector. So for example, you want to specify that I want the color of all the text to be black. You can be able to, you see everything has changed to black. You can be able to, maybe I want to be able to convert them into italic. You can see everything has been able to be converted into italic. So that's usually the power of universal selectors. From there, what else did we cover? So let me just look at the notes. So the last one that I'll cover before now Bobby finishes is the ID selector that I think he had talked about. Now we've said that if you want to style an element, all you need to do yes, we said if you want to style an element, for example, I want to style, let me create another one. I want to style this H6. So this is an element that I've created. If I want to style an element by its own, all I need to do is pick the name of the element. So that becomes my selector. Then put it in curly braces. Then the property that I want to style, I want to style color to red. Then on the right side is the value. Then you end it with a quotation mark, with a semicolon. So that's how you usually style elements. We've said when you're styling classes, you usually start with the dots, with the dot or the period, then the name of the class. If I want to style this div section over here that you've just created, known as nav items, all I need to do is come, put a period, then the name of our class that I want to style. From there, I can style it however I want. Maybe I say display should be flex. I can put as many styling properties that I want here. The final one that I want to cover is the ID, which is on line 35. So if you're using an ID, if you want to be able to style it, what you simply, if you're using an ID and an ID selector and you want to style it, what you simply need to do is first of all start with the hash. Then the same way, if you're using a class, you start with the period. With the ID, you start with the hash, then the name of the ID that you want to put. So it's that way, then everything else is the same. You can come and say background color. maybe aqua green. So if we go back to our project here, it has not picked. So let me see where the issue is. Yes, you can see it has picked. So those are the different ways that you can be able to use the different selectors that you can be able to use. You can use an element, you can use an ID, you can use a class selector, and you can use a universal selector. So this other two, I think Bobby will cover as we wind up with the class. Any question before Bobby finishes? Any question? Anything that is not clear? Okay, so we've been able to cover the basics of CSS. There's still a lot that you can be able to do, but with the basics, I believe that now learning the rest of the stuff will not be as difficult, or it will not be as intimidating. We have two more things that we need to cover before we end CSS. We need to cover mobile responsiveness, which we'll cover, I think, on Thursday. Then we need to cover the box model. So those are the two main topics that we'll cover. From there, I think we'll be done with CSS. Then we'll now move to other topics. So if there is no other questions, I think Bobby will now finish. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Benjamin. There is one last part that we were supposed to cover in our recap today before we remain with the box model and mobile responsiveness. It's what we had started in the last class about the cascade. So it was about understanding the cascades in CSS, whereby the first C in CSS stands for cascade. So we had said that sometimes we have rules, and that these rules in CSS, they conflict with one another, and we may end up with some unexpected results, whereby maybe you wanted your paragraphs to be blue and others to be red, but they were mixing up, and we wanted to understand why CSS does these things against our wishes, maybe, and to see why it defaults to whatever it defaults to, and so forth. So we say that this cascade plays a crucial role in determining how the different styles that we have are applied, and there are different factors that the cascade rules use to determine this, and we say that there are three different factors that the cascade uses to determine this. One we said was specificity, the second one was inheritance, and the third one was rule order. If that is what we had said, or the other name for rule order was origin. So specificity, inheritance, and origin. And this is essential for us to understand how this has control over our styles. We said that specificity was the ranking system that CSS uses to determine which rules to apply. So as we've seen, there are various ways to apply our rules, and by the use of this specificity, it's a ranking system that CSS uses to determine which rules to apply when multiple rules are conflicting or are targeting the same element. So we say that the more specific the rule are, the more priority is given. So we said that for it to be taken into account, it has to act as a tiebreaker. And we said that it uses different selectors from the most specific to the least specific. We've seen we have different ways of using CSS. We've seen inline, uh, external, and the other one. So inline, which is the first, is the one where we write our CSS code inside the HTML element, and this is the most specific. So in terms of specificity, this one comes first. So if you have some CSS that is written in your inline CSS and others that are written in your external CSS, the one that is inline will take much more priority as it's considered more specific than the ones in external CSS. We've seen the different types of selectors. So also these selectors have different specificity. So like the ID selectors, they are given much more priority as compared to universal selectors or class selectors or the other types of selectors. So if we rank them in order from the most specific, we start with inline. And the reason it's more specific that it's written inline before your code. The second one is the ID selector, which you use the hash or the pound symbol. And then we have the third one, the class selectors, attribute selectors, the one that we use the period before, and the pseudo classes. Those are the third. And then we have elements, the one that Benjamin was demonstrating, if it's a heading or a paragraph. And finally, universal selectors, the one which we use the asterisks. So in an example, if we use a class selector versus an element selector, the class selector, which has higher specificity than a type selector, so whatever rules you've written in your class selector will go first compared to the ones that will be in your type selector. So that is how the specificity rule applies in terms of the cascade. The more specific it is, the most priority it takes and goes. So you may have one that says this is red, another one that says this is blue, and the one that says this is red, it can be either inline or an ID selector, and the one that says this is blue can be either universal or an element selector. So the one that has is more specific will be given more priority. So we've said that the ones that get more priority than the other are inline and ID selectors. Then we had the second thing, which was inheritance. We had not touched on this. And some CSS properties are usually automatically inherited from, we had started talking about this. They're usually inherited from a parent element. Most of these are like text related properties, something like color, font family, things that we saw over the last class, and others are like margin, padding, borders, and so forth, which are usually not inherited. So the ones that are inherited are the text related properties mostly, the color, font size, font family, the typography based, the text related ones that we covered. So those are the ones that have descendants and parents that can be inherited. So in this case, if you don't explicitly write the rules For these descendants, they usually inherit from the parent. Over the next class, I'll be able to do the examples before we proceed. And something else to mention here is that we can override these inheritances when working with inheritance. And if you want to override an inheritance, you can use something like inherit initial or something like unset to be able to override that inheritance. I can see time is running. So the final one is the rule order. So if you have multiple rules that have the same specificity, they use the rule order, which says that the last rule wins. So if the last rule is defined, that is what will take precedence. We will look at it practically as we continue. And then there's something called maybe special case, whereby you use something like exclamation important rule. So this one will override all other rules. So you can use something like that. We will see it practically over the next class. That is what we call the special case, the important rule. For today, because time has already gone from on my end, we shall pick from there on the next class. Thank you.
you.